Angeles or Santa Ana, and you have schools, elementary schools with 3,000 to 4,000 students, multi-track year-round. It's just like you're in Calcutta.
Helms is so overcrowded that some teachers don't have classrooms.
They have to carry everything with them, and they have just those 5 minutes, just like their students, to get from class to class.
Come on in, you guys, be really quiet, we've got a test to do. Every time it's settling down, I've got to unpack, the noise level goes up. It's a good 5, maybe 10 minutes into the period before you get started with whatever you need to do.
Brenda, so you're gonna get one, yes?
Everywhere in the district, space is tight. This music class meets in the cafeteria.
When you unlock it, you want it to unlock it up, to go up like that, okay?
Now, earlier in the year, we had the prefix in, which means the opposite of dependent.
Our district is a training ground for teachers. It's a revolving door.
Principal McLean says that working conditions in San Pablo drive many of her teachers away.
We're frequently starting over with underprepared teachers, or they've just gotten out of college, so they have no credential at all.
Throughout the district, schools are inadequately staffed.
We had a librarian last year who came in 1 day a week, and she would just shelve books. And now that she's not here, we'd like to start using the library, but we're told we're not supposed to.
I have a task to do with my child. I have to make sure that she's prepared and ready to go on to college.
Parents at Helms are angry about the conditions and worried about their children's education.
And that's one of my concerns, that she's not getting the basic fundamentals in order for her to be able to keep up even in high school.
I come from a family that they came here when they were younger. They already read in Mexico and write, and they all went to university. And my children, they're born here, they're not reading and writing in English.
My daughter used to be an A-straight student, and she's been coming down because I guess it's not enough motivation. It's something missing in the system, but I don't know what. But something definitely is not there.
Ever since Californians revolted against higher taxes, public schools across the state have been in decline. But crumbling buildings are only part of the legacy of Proposition 13.
The detrimental consequence of Proposition 13 isn't so much money as it is how it changed the governance structure of California's education system. Proposition 13 centralized decision-making. It changed California from a system of local schools to a state system.
Power shifted to the state capital after Proposition 13, as paying for public schools became a state responsibility. By the late 1980s, this fiscal power brought unprecedented control over classroom teaching.
The teacher showed us what they used to teach reading, and it was a beautiful anthology of stories. But in no way did it have anything to do with teaching a child to read.
In 1991, Marion Joseph saw firsthand the effects of state intervention in the classroom. Her grandson's elementary school was using the state-backed reading program. Joseph examined the textbooks.
And my daughter said, well, my son can't read those words. Can all the children read those words? And the teacher said, well, some can and some can't. And my daughter said, well, I'd like the books that you use to teach the children to read the words. Then I can help my son at home. And the teacher said, shrugged, and I realized then that this was all she had.
Knit.
Knit.
Packs.
Picnic.
Kits.
California's new approach to reading was called whole language. It emphasized storytelling over sounding out letters and words. Backed by state money, whole language moved quickly into most elementary schools.
There are fads in education where people just get on the bandwagon and do what others are doing without thinking through whether it meets what their objectives are or what their goals are. And they do that because they have no idea what they're supposed to be doing.
Nancy Ichinaga was one of the few principals who turned down state funds and rejected whole language.
Whole language it should not be a reading program. Their methodology is wrong because they thought kids could learn how to read just like they could learn how to speak. And you know, reading is a skill that has to be taught.
She couldn't understand the words, but knew their sound.
Test scores in Ichinaga's school went up, but statewide they were heading in the opposite direction.
By '92, we had the first NAEP results, and it showed California going down. We were now 5th from the bottom. And I thought, oh, now they'll pay attention. It was a problem. They didn't. But by 1994, the Great California was now the bottom of the United States of America, matched only by Guam.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
Shocked by the disastrous results, the State Board of Education backpedaled on whole language, returning to a more traditional approach. But the larger lesson was overlooked. Power over day-to-day instruction remained centralized, and the state continued to try out new ideas.
California's political culture is newness, change, innovation. The whole technology movement here is that sort of focus. So when we see new things, we tend to rush in and try them. And we sometimes say, well, let's try them statewide rather than just pilot them in a few places and see if they work.
I ask that you join me in making class size reduction the spark of an even broader renaissance for California education.
In 1996, under Governor Pete Wilson, California passed another statewide education mandate, this time requiring classes to be lowered to no more than 20 children in kindergarten through 3rd grade.
Your last one, Sam.
Lowering class size forced schools to scramble to find teachers.
We had a very large increase in the number of under-credentialed, under-qualified teachers because because all these new classes then required the hiring of a lot more teachers. And not only did we get more unqualified teachers, but the better teachers left the urban districts and went to better suburban districts, so that the greatest concentration of underqualified teachers appeared in the most needy schools, particularly the urban schools.
It was not uncommon to find schools like this one in Los Angeles, where half of the teachers were uncertified. Now, what's your background as a teacher?
Well, I just started teaching. I'm new at teaching. And basically, I'm getting my credentials right now. Yeah, so it's like a learning process for me, too.
Mr. Garcia seems like a nice man.
Yeah, he's a nice man.
He's new, though.
Yes.
Who was your teacher at the beginning?
The first one, he was a
Policeman?
Yeah. So he worked at the night. So in the morning, he came to sleep.
To sleep during class?
Yeah.
Oh.
He said, okay, do math at page 31. Then we started, and then when he see that everyone was doing math, he started to sleep.
Reducing class size immediately created another problem, a shortage of classrooms.
Obviously, it led to a lot more portable classrooms. People in Florida were shocked when they had 10% of their kids, or close to 10%, in portable classrooms. We've got like a quarter in portable classrooms. And, and there's some schools where there's no playground space left because they're covered with these portables.
So this reform may have hurt?
It's had a lot of unintended consequences.
Not all the school's problems were the result of centralized power in Sacramento. In the 1980s and 90s, other forces were at work.
The state of California grew 6 million people between 1980 and 1990. Several years, our school enrollments went up by over 200,000 a year. We grew 4 million people between 1990 and 2000. So we're always having 100,000 or more students to accommodate.
The millions of new students who arrived in California's schools were mostly immigrants or the children of immigrants.
14 and 15.
They attended schools like Ocala Middle in San Jose.